Welcome back to part 2 of your 7 Days to Die hot takes. In the last video I asked you guys to hit 1000 likes if you wanted to see the next episode, and you guys did, so let's jump in with the first hot take. Sneaking through a POI seems pointless now with the triggered areas, releasing a horde that know where you are instantly. I preferred the older version for POI exploration where dumping points into sneak upgrades was worth it. Not sure it is now. For the most part I would agree with that take. I think there is more sneakability, I guess, than some people would suggest. It's not completely useless, it's just much harder now, and you really need to make use of the max level assassin gear or something like it to get the full sneak bonuses, and you need to move very slowly in order to not wake up the zombies, but some rooms do always just trigger. But I think discounting stealth combat as a mechanic just because it doesn't help you clear the highest level POIs brainlessly as it used to is an oversimplification, because sneaking through lower level POIs earlier on and getting stealth attacks, especially on harder difficulties, is actually really useful. My hot take is that I love the system of water being scarce and jars not being refillable. It adds that survival element and makes you strategize what missions to go on and if you'll spend money on food and water instead of shiny new toys. I understand that perspective, but I just disagree with it, because yes, it does add a quote-unquote survival element for water to be, more difficult to obtain. Just objectively, that is more survival-ish. But there comes a point where you just kind of really are pushing the limits of the suspension of disbelief, right? I can accept zombies. Zombies are part of the premise, but why would my character be able to dehydrate to death when standing next to a water source with a campfire and a cooking pot? It just doesn't make any sense. My hot take: learn by reading isn't even the worst of it in terms of progression. Don't get me wrong, it's illogical and it makes me want to put my head in a wood chipper, but the devs could replace it if they choose to. Loot stage is dumb too. It makes zero sense that you could theoretically walk into the hardest POI in the game on day 1 and not get anything good because your loot stage is too low. I understand that there needs to be tiers to progression, but loot stage and LBR are just two ways of artificially achieving this. They never came up with a good underlying balanced gameplay mechanic for all of it, hence all the arbitrary rules and regulations they constantly force down our throats. Compare 7 Days to Die and Valheim in terms of how you can acquire certain weapons and gear and how they fit into each other, and you'll want to cry a little bit. I think that's very valid. I don't think loot stage is a very robust system. It's inspired by games like Skyrim and Fallout 4, where essentially you get crap in loot until you're a certain level. RPG mechanics like this are kind of just not appreciated, and they don't exactly make sense because it's not like the zombies are storing the good gear away or you're going somewhere clearing it out and then people are coming back in and refilling the containers with better stuff because they are also higher level. It's just the zombies level with you and the gear they're guarding, which is completely just made up. Like, the gear is just there because you're supposed to go there. It's not as elegantly done as Elder Scrolls and Fallout, for sure, and it doesn't fit as well in this game. I think a better system personally would just be the removal of loot stage and game stage for POIs, and you just have some POIs which are really low level that have shit gear in them, and you have some POIs that are extremely hard and will always have really good loot in them, and you just balance the POI design and the game design for the zombies in such a way that it would be near impossible for a level 1 player with a club to go in and get good gear on day 1. And to me, it seems like the Fun Pimps don't want to take on that kind of a challenge from a game design perspective. Hot take: Horde Nights feel more like a chore than a game feature. I kind of see what you're talking about. They are kind of inherently a chore, and I think the reason that Horde Nights feel like a chore is because they turn the game on its head a little bit. 7 Days to Die is a game where you can go anywhere, do anything, go into any building, loot anything, fight zombies wherever, and then on Horde Nights, it becomes you're gonna sit there and you're gonna be attacked for 20 minutes, and it's just not as fun. You get bored of it very quickly, because 7 Days to Die is a game where if you get bored of whatever you're doing, you can just turn and do something else. So it makes Horde Nights feel very dull. Is there a solution to that, other than turning off Horde Nights, obviously? There is a hypothetical solution to that. It would involve making some kind of secondary point to Horde Nights. Maybe, for example, there is some kind of game event that happens on Horde Night that you have to go and do something at while fighting off the Horde to make Horde Night feel like a more proactive, exploration-driven experience and less like a chore of just sitting and shooting zombies. And even if you don't sit in bases and shoot zombies, it's still a bit of a chore to be like running around and just dealing with zombies, defending yourself for like 20 minutes. It does really drag on to do the exact same part of the game for 20 minutes. The Wasteland has so many zombies that it never feels worth it to go there. There's a really interesting one. I don't know if I agree that the Wasteland has so many zombies that it never feels worth it to go there necessarily, but I will say that this ties into the loot stage one we covered earlier. The way the loot stage system and game stage system work means that at the start of the game, it's completely not worthwhile to ever go to the Wasteland. But there's also, conversely, like as you get later into the game, the loot stage bonus stops doing anything because it caps out at something like 290, so you can get the best gear from the snow biome. And it leads to this very odd thing where instead of going to higher biomes the higher level you get, you just go to the highest biome that gets you to about 300 loot stage, which as you get higher level means you go to lower tier biomes, because why would you go to the Wasteland when the snow biome can give you the same loot once you're a certain level? And I think that is a real limitation of the biome loot stage system. So this comment has two halves to it. One of them I don't think is a particularly hot take, which is Alpha 16 perks are more balanced and better in every way than post A17 perk systems. I don't know about more balanced or better. More balanced is hard to say, better is subjective. But the other half, stun batons are the only viable weapon post 100 game stage in modern 7 Days to Die. That is a serious skill issue. Look, I know ever since that they buffed intellect and stun batons considerably, the average 7 Days to Die player who frequents Reddit thinks the stun baton is the most OP thing ever, probably largely because I've been telling them that for years. But to say it's the only viable weapon past 100 game stage is craziness when we live in a game where sledgehammers are in the state that they are in and clubs are in the state that they are in, and quite frankly, spears and machetes are also very good. I assume this person only meant melee weapons, but the only melee weapon I would say is kind of shitty is fists, mostly because you have to do like extra hurdles to make the perks and stuff work for fists. Not necessarily that you can't have a powerful fist playstyle, but if you're on like Insane Nightmare and stuff, it really does usually just feel like you're just doing this to torture yourself rather than using one of the more powerful melee weapons. But no, stun batons are not the only viable melee weapon past 100 game stage in modern 7 Days to Die. In fact, they get worse the higher the game stage is, because you start to rely pretty much entirely on the instant kill effect from Physician, which only procs 10% of the time. This isn't a hot take, this is just someone who had a question that I thought I would answer while I was here. In the last video, I talked about how there was like settler style players and nomad style players, and both of them rely on the trader to fill in the gaps of their playstyle. And this person asked, how do you engage with the trader system without doing at least a lot of POI clearing or quests? Where do these settler style players get the dukes to rely on traders? Not that I play vanilla anymore, but when I did a basic middle tier base while concentrating on questing and looting. Without that part, trying to rely on traders for progression is impossible in my opinion. You, my good friend, have never heard of growing supercorn, but also you can sell mineable resources at the vending machines. The takes you had are much hotter than the ones given to you. Of course, that's the point. I think it's important for me to also have hot takes so that these videos are interesting, and it's not just me being like John Sensible, just being like, that's a very silly take. I don't think that's very intelligent. I think we should be very reserved and not come to such conclusions. Like, no, I have to out crazy you. I have to. 7 Days to Die is a live service game, not early access. It is not a live service game. It does not have seasons or battle passes or anything like that. There's almost no monetization to the game other than the cosmetics that they just started releasing. YouTubers, use a damn head torch so I can see what you're doing while watching on a cell phone in less than ideal conditions. Wrong, and I'll tell you why, Rooster, you should expect more. Instead of telling your local YouTuber to spawn in a helmet light so that you can see, tell them to edit the footage better. We have access to that technology. We do. We can make the screen brighter for you. You just have to remind us. I'm torn on if the ballooning options menu for the world settings are good or not. While having the experience you want is nice, it feels like TFB never need to commit to any design idea as long as they make it a toggle. It makes 7 Days to Die feel like more like a sandbox that you make into a survival game. At this point, I think the idea/identity of the game is super muddy and unclear. So many games lose their identity trying to cater to more people, and I think 7 Days to Die is close to that. So here's my question, genuinely. I hear that argument a lot. It's losing its identity. What does that mean for the player? Truly, what does that mean for the player? Has Skyrim lost its identity because it's heavily moddable and like half the players are always playing modded? They even have mods on console. I don't think Skyrim's lost its identity because of that. And I don't think the identity matters for a game. The identity is whatever you make the game. Like let's say they add all those menu toggles and stuff. What becomes the identity of 7 Days to Die? It becomes an extremely customizable sandbox zombie survival experience. That's what it already is. It's just, it will be more customizable and more sandboxy. And it's always been a sandbox. Sandbox has been the key word for this game since the very beginning. So I don't understand that problem. I don't understand the problem with it being more of what it is, a sandbox survival game. If anything, I would say something like adding a storyline to the game would actually muddy its identity more because it suddenly has like an RPG quest line, which it never had for however many years until they actually add that feature. I don't think adding more toggles changes the identity, especially if you just put those toggles kind of shifted off to the side for more advanced players. And I mean, what is current 7 Days to Die's identity as far as those settings are concerned? Nomad difficulty, walking zombies during the day, 8 default zombies, that's 7 Days to Die's identity? No, customization has always been a big part of it, and I don't think that it loses anything by adding more of it. People also make an argument like, oh, it loses the curated developers touch. The curated developers touch is horrendous. The developers have been going in circles for over a decade. They don't really have a respected authorial identity themselves to make a good game. Like, if I was playing a game by Hideo Kojima, I would understand the concerns about having menu toggles for everything, because that is someone with a vision who actually wants to make a specific thing. 7 Days to Die has been 5 different things and clearly doesn't have a vision, so why not put it in the hands of players who do have visions about what they want the game to be? That is an identity in itself. The devs want to make you play the game longer artificially by nerfing everything and adding stupid progression systems instead of making the gameplay better, which would naturally make you play longer. Alright, why though? Why would they want that? Why would they want you to play longer? They don't get anything from you playing longer. They don't get any more money from you playing longer. 7 Days is top 5, maybe even top 3 most fun in survival crafting genre. And that's not a hot take, that's just your preference. Sales numbers? No, it's not. None of these are hot takes. They are repeated takes said over and over by you and the majority of the community. My personal hot take is that they should just let TFB do as they're doing now. They are seemingly beginning to listen to feedback, so why would we stop now? But knowing them, they will stop at one point without any given explanation. I'm basically saying to give up on the game. It will never return to the product you enjoyed. The devs have stated their piece, and this is the product they want regardless of how much we whine complain. Alright bro, thanks for that input of absolute pessimism. We will continue not doing that. The game needs to be built from the ground up by someone else, then it would just be a different game. And the gunplay in the game is the worst of any FPS ever made. You, my good friend, have not played Fallout 3. Glass jars being gone was the dumbest complaint I've ever seen. Do you worry about potion containers in Skyrim, Oblivion, Final Fantasy? No, I would have just added smashing the jar into the ground at the end of the drinking animation just to shut people up. Well, you seem very fun. Here's the point of glass jars. It wasn't because, oh, we need a container for water. It's because we couldn't, like, collect water from a water source in a survival game. Didn't have to be glass jars. Could have been anything. You're parroting Fun Pimp's own logic here, where they were like, people never care about potion containers in Skyrim. Yeah, because that's not important to Skyrim. It's a game about magic. If the potions were flowing through a fucking river outside Whiterun and I wanted to collect some, I would need a container to collect some. In Skyrim, if I pressed E on the potion river and a potion appeared in my inventory, fine. So things have to be more scarce than that. So we need to have containers to simulate difficulty holding the entire river in my pocket. I just want the topless zombie back. Devs are coward. Why do you want her back? What do you want from that? Like, is it sexually engaging to you, Steve Silverskull? Is it? Because, like, if not, why do you care? Why do you want the zombie booby? Why do you want to look at them? Does that do something for you? That's the only logic I can see here, is that you want to see zombie titties. And I don't understand why you want to see zombie titties. Are you gooning to the zombie titties? If you guys want to see another episode for this, I'm gonna need a new theme. Why don't you guys give me your hot takes specifically for the future of 7 Days to Die. What do you think about 3.0, the updates after that? Maybe even hot takes about the game that they're working on after it. Put it down in the comments, and if we hit, I don't know, let's say 1,000 likes again, I will make that video. So be sure to subscribe for that if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.